Hi guys. So last time in my last book review, I had mentioned about my next book review that will be on the mythologies regarding yoga. And this book is written by Devdutt Pattanaik. And the thing about this author is very fascinating that I have read a couple of his books. He writes mostly about Hindu mythologies and try to narrate them in a very different way. If you want to see a view of a complete one, like from a perspective how Westerners see it, from a history perspective, from a actual mythological perspective, and also from an actual scientific perspective of Vedas and Hindu stories, then this writer is someone whose books you have to read. Or when you go into understanding the deeper meaning of those stories, you tend to explore much more than just the things that are told in the stories. So same thing is with this mythological book. At the beginning, the author already mentioned that the stories that are mentioned here are mythological stories. So they have roots to what actually happened, but they are told in a very exciting, very elaborate way, in such a way that it feels very not possible. And it kind of create disbelief, and it kind of also create like, oh, this doesn't make any sense, this must be wrong. But we have to keep that ideology aside and look at this book in a very different way. So he mentioned that this has nothing to do directly with the yogasana itself. It has also not to do with yogasana, how it came to existence or like that, but it's about stories, how these yogasanas, their names and the postures are related to our culture. I won't say Hindu culture, because this book is not just about Hinduism. This book also talks about Buddhism. It also talks about Abrahamic religions. It also talks about Jainism. So it's like yoga or yoga is not limited to just Hinduism, or it is related to the world or the Sanatan Dharma. So Sanatan Dharma is not religion. Dharma is way of life. It is basically how a human being or how the nature should work, how duties should be, how responsibilities should be, what you should do and what you should not do. It is more about ethics than following a god and praying to a god and defending a god or criticizing a god. So let us look at some of the things. So he mentions, it's very interesting. The reason I got interested in this book is because it mentions 64 asanas. If you have looked at my other videos where I talk about Iniyam, it also mentions 64, a number. So 64 is a very interesting number which occurs in many places. And this book, I got interested because of this number itself. So let's see what it actually talks about. So as he illustrates different asanas, he has divided the asanas, their names, into certain categories. So he divides it into a section called Devi. So that is like Shakta. As if you know, we have the followers of Devi, we have the followers of Brahma, we have followers of Shiva, we have followers of Vishnu. So he has divided the book, the asanas, into all four of them. So Brahma, Vishnu, Mahesh, we know that these three are the entities that are creator, sustainer and the destroyer of the world. And Shakti or Devi is basically present all three of them. The first yogasana it mentions is Surya Namaskar. So interestingly, Surya Namaskar is a yogasana that we all know about, but most of us probably don't know that the Surya Namaskar was invented by Hanuman in return for gratitude towards Surya Dev, who is the sun god, for giving him the knowledge that he wanted to learn from him. And there is also stories about Hanuman being married, and it also is very interesting is that even if he is a brahmachari, Bal brahmachari, one who is a celibate throughout life, has to undergo the ideals of marriage just to learn certain aspect of our Vedic culture. So even if you are a celibate, you cannot let things like marriage make an enemy of it, because it is part of your life. It is something that you are born to do. So even Hanuman, who is everyone who wants to be a celibate brahmachari, prays to him, but he also has this part of his life. Still, to understand certain knowledge, to gain certain knowledge, you have to undergo the rituals of marriage. So Surya Deva taught him pretty much everything as a teacher, and with gratitude he gave him Surya Namaskar Asanas, and the Surya Namaskar Asanas he performed them 108 times. So in childhood, when we used to do the whole set of Surya Namaskar, we were taught that it might be done 1 to 12 times, but actually to have a very fit body and to have the actual use, the essence of Surya Namaskar, you actually have to do it 108 times. And believe me, it's very tiring. It takes a toll on your body, but if you do it, you become very powerful. So let me jump directly to one of the very interesting pages, that is the Pashasana, the noose pose. So interestingly, he mentions about how Hindu mythology, the nature is governed by two principles. One is desire, and the desire leads to an action. So that is desire, kama or vasana, and it leads to karma. So it's very interesting. Karma is not destiny. A lot of people have this we think that this is our karma, but what actually is karma is basically you have certain desires in your life. If you have desires, you will tend to fulfill that desire and you will create an action. So depending on the action, it will create a ripple effect, or it will create a cause effect phenomenon. So what is desire and what is destiny is very interestingly represented by a bow and a noose. A bow is a weapon of Kamadeva. Kamadeva is a god of desire. So we have known the stories of Mahadev, Shiva burning Kamadeva with his third eye, and because he fired an arrow of love and affection towards him to awaken that Kama inside him. And that also is a very interesting story, where it is not actually just that Kamadeva fires an arrow towards Mahadev and he burns him. It is basically, it's an yogic practice. Sri Sadguru has also mentioned, in a yogic practice, when you are in a deep meditative state, when the Kundalini is getting awakened, the most powerful desire, the most powerful addiction is the kama vasana, or that desire, sexual desire, is one of the most powerful. And for a yogi, it becomes a very disturbing factor in his life. So when that desire rises in a very stable yogi, then it becomes very disturbing. So that fire, that burning of that kama desire happens in this region. So it is somewhere in the pituitary, when that kundalini rises up, and it is the most powerful. It is affecting that area when it opens that block, opens that chakra. So you have to burn it. That burning creates so much of heat in the body. It's almost like burns your skin. So it is like basically burning kama vasana, rather than just a mythological story of third eye killing Kamadeva. While on the other hand, karma is governed by noose, so that is a rope. So that is like you tie someone and you kind of imprison it. It's like it is something that is used by Yamadev. Yamadev is basically a god who is responsible for serving justice. So one who does a karma, he has to undergo this justice. If he has done good or bad karma, good and bad karma are subjective to dharma. So what is dharma is basically, for a lion, when he is hungry, its prey is a deer. To kill a deer to eat, for him, is not a crime. It is his way of life. But for a person who already has enough food, for a human being who already has this food, he has desire to kill the deer for his recreation, for he satisfy his ego. So that karma, if he kills that deer for no reason as such, then it becomes a wrongdoing. So this goes against dharma. For that, he has to attune to his karma and he has to pay for it. Desire and karma are two things that are very much like yin and yang to each other. You cannot separate them from one another. But the desire can be treated as part of you without giving it into it and without succumbing to it by completely ignoring the dharma. You can do your desired deeds, and whatever karma that you do, the result of that karma is your gift of universe. So you have to accept it. If you regret what you have done, when you get the fruit of your karma, if you're ignorant about it and you start blaming other people, you start blaming God and everything, then it is wrong. After this, he starts going into all the asanas, and then he mentions about the Brahma. So Brahma, or Brahman as we call it, is basically the universe. So Brahman, humans are represented by Brahma, because Brahma is someone who creates and is part of this illusion, is part of this physical world. Only after the human beings have evolved of fear, hunger, and gone beyond to understand what the universe is, then only we truly go into the field of God. Otherwise, if we are trapped by this hunger and fear, then we are like all the other animals trying to just live our life and continuously fall into the same circle of reincarnation and this Maya. What Brahma is, the reason we are never worshipping Brahma is because Brahma is someone who created this physical world. So he is limited by what as humans are. And to go beyond is to achieve a state of either Shiva or Vishnu or Devi. So Shiva and Vishnu are two aspects of that infinite consciousness that are beyond this, that knowledge, that wisdom is beyond this physical world that we are living in. And Brahma or Brahman is someone who has expanded his mind beyond this physical body. So the purpose of us being humans is not just to live our life, learn, earn, recreate, and then die. The purpose of our life is to expand our mind, to go within and beyond, and to find the truth about universe. The truth about universe is the super consciousness. And when you understand that, you try to, through yogic practices or various other system of spiritual cultivation, you try to build your mind to such a state that you yourself turn into that state of godliness. So what is God is very interesting. He mentions is that the state of Brahman, when you have that self-realization, when you have achieved the state of Shiva or Vishnu, then you turn into the Brahman. There is no difference. So it's like how in Taoism I mentioned, Wuji, Wu. So I don't exist. What exists is the universe and I are one. So that oneness is what, it is not just a thought. It is not just, oh, I know I am one with nature. It is being in every aspect of the world, able to feel yourself in that small minor creatures lying around, mosquitoes, ants everywhere. Even the dead wood on your table is part of the universe. It once used to be a tree. It has still the molecular structure that once created this universe. So it is very interesting how he mentions all these three, you look at Hindu mythology and you look at these three people. You look at them people because it makes you realize that, that godly ability can be achieved through the human form. That is how we have the saying, we have the Siddha Purusha. So they are basically someone who have achieved the state of God in their human form. So that is an ideology why the gods in Hindu mythology are portrayed in a form of human figures, is because it tells you that you have the potential to achieve that. You have the Atma that has to reach that Paramatma. This body is the tool to achieve that. But we have ignored it and we have made them into an idol and we just pray to them, but we never realize who and what we are supposed to be, who we are. This particular process of evolving is what makes humans the most spiritually advanced creatures. Another very interesting, because in this book he mentions about the three gods. So I would like to mention, this is not directly relevant, but it has certain things that we can use in our practical life. So I've seen certain videos of Mr. Vinay Varanasi, and he mentions the three gods and their wives or their counterparts very beautifully as Brahma being the creator. So Brahma, who is the creator, needs knowledge. So knowledge is Saraswati. So what Brahma requires is knowledge. So that is why they are together. So to create something, if you want to build a laptop, you need to have the knowledge of how to. So that knowledge or the Ved that is present in the universe are collected, written and compiled by Saraswati for Brahma to use for creation. After that, he talks about Vishnu. Vishnu is someone who sustains, who allows the universe to exist. For the existence to take place, for something to sustain, you require resources. If you build a company, if you want to run the company, you need to have in and out of resources. So that sustenance requires resources. And what resources is Lakshmi? Lakshmi we call as the goddess of resources or goddess of wealth. That is what sustenance is. Even within our body, it is also very important that we know what sustenance is. To have a healthy life, to have a very successful, sustainable, healthy living, you need to know what your true wealth is. So that is why health is called wealth. Another thing very interesting is that in Hindu mythology, we have Samudra Manthan. During the Samudra Manthan, we have certain things that are coming out during that churning of the ocean. And one of them is Dhanvantari with a kalash or with a pot of Amrit. Amrit is basically, for the viewers who don't know, is an elixir of immortality. So Amrit is something that he brings out with him, and Dhanvantari is considered the god of medicine or the god of Ayurveda. So if he is the god of medicine, then when we celebrate Dhanteras, it is not about earning money. This is very interesting. Dhanteras are not celebrated for money, but it is celebrated for health. Dhanvantari is not a god of wealth. Dhanvantari is a god of health. And here we know that health is wealth. So that is why Dhan is wealth. Dhanvantari is a god of health. The true wealth is your health. It is part of our literature. It is part of our Vedic culture. But as usual, in this Kali Yuga, we are becoming ignorant and we are thinking that the wealth is the wealth. So anyways, let us move to the third part, that is the Shiva. Shiva is destroyer. Destroyer means he basically, when the world is about to, has already sustained enough and it is about to get destroyed and form new, you need to, like any resources, if you want to create something new, you have to destroy something old. And to destroy something old, you need a powerful source of energy. That is where his counterpart is Shakti. Shakti is power, resource. So that creates. So when you want to build something, evolve, when you want to evolve yourself into a higher being, you have to have immense amount of energy burned inside you. That strong Kundalini, that desire has to be burned and the Kundalini has to rise. And that only lets you grow. I'm not talking about the Vedic practices itself. I'm talking about that burning of desire. We have to work against the flow of this desire. Desires are very easy. This samosa is very interesting. This Jalebi is very tasty. It's a desire, but to avoid that and to calm yourself that you don't need it, it takes a lot of your guts. And that energy that you are burning creates fire, and that helps you evolve. As we go through some of the other asanas, and he talks about how Buddhism and Hinduism have a little of difference of opinion, but they both are focused on that ultimate goal, that is getting out of fear of death, fear of hunger, and becoming tranquil. So in Hinduism, he mentions how Atma doesn't fear death because it is just changing the body. But why we fear death is because when the body, which is linked to the Atma, is ripped from that Atma, there is an immense amount of pain that we are suffering, and we have to go through this every time we are going through the cycles of life. Because of this pain, we are afraid of death. But the Atma itself, when you know that it is someone who is infinite, it is part of that Paramatma, it is not bound by this body, then you are free from it, and you don't feel that fear of death, and you are more tranquil. While in Buddhism, it is something that it mentions about nothingness. It is like Buddhism and Taoism kind of go hand in hand. It is like you're tranquil when you know that you are one with the universe, and that the nothingness is the absolute truth. Nothingness, it means the word nothing also doesn't exist. So that is how another asana, that is Shavasana. There's something very interesting he mentions, which kind of goes in hand with Taoism. So in Taoism, we talk about yin and yang, the yang being male or energy, or doesn't have a physical form, like everything that doesn't have physical existence, while yin is something that is in essence, which is physically existing. So here he mentioned how in Hindu mythology, the idea of force or the life itself is represented by masculine, and the goddess or the feminine nature of God is representing the physical things of nature. So we call it like Purush and Prakriti. So Purush being Shiva and Prakriti being Parvati. Purush is someone who has this life force going around. So everything that is existing but doesn't have a form is basically comes under the Purush, the working, and the physical form is basically the Prakriti. So that is something very much similar to Taoism. So you see that even the religion or the philosophies are coming very far away from each other, yet they have the same thing, which means the universe has the same ideologies. Even if you call it mythology or just our imagination, but how can imagination of two different people from two different lands with two different languages, with two different cultures, can have the same way of thinking, only different words? So in Taoism he says like the words doesn't matter, what idea is what matters. So this is a perfect example of it. How in Hinduism, in Buddhism, in Taoism, they all talk about the same thing, yet the words are different, and we fall into a trap and we become ignorant, thinking that every religion is different. My religion says this, your religion says. There is no me and you. It is just one. We just have different language. So as we go ahead, he mentions something very interesting about how in Kailasa is abode of Shiva, and Shiva lives there with Parvati, his wife, his two sons Ganesha and Kartikeya. So in that he mentioned that Kartikeya rides a peacock, and peacock, their food is basically serpents. Serpent is coiled around Mahadev's neck. So you know that the Naga on his neck. Again, what serpents eat is rat, and rat is the Vahana or the ride of Ganesha. So this is very interesting that it mentions that in Adobe of Shiva, where in Kailasa, it is beyond the hunger and fear that we mentioned about. It is beyond the Brahma, that cycle of life and death. So it is beyond that, and since it is beyond the cycle of life and death, they don't have that fear. So they are living as one. So they don't eat each other. They are not afraid of each other. So when you are going beyond, your Atma is actually realized, and you are going beyond this physical world, learning to be like Shiva, then you don't have this desires, and your karma fall will change accordingly. So as we move to Gajasana, so it is again, as I mentioned, how in Hinduism we talk about Shiva and Parvati. Shiva is someone who is interested in this spiritual awakening and cultivation all the time, like yoga. And Parvati is someone who want to make him into a householder, wants to make him into someone who has a family. So this is a duality of a mind that at one part of us, it wants to chase that the spiritual and be alone, while the other aspect of wants to be in that grahasthi, in the family household. This duality of a person who is a spiritual seeker is the most powerful thing to overcome. And what actually happens is Shiva doesn't want to have child, but Parvati creates a child from mud and breathes life into it. So this is another part of mythology where different cultures around the world are talking about the same thing. In China, they believe that the mother god made like this small idols of humans from mud and breathed life into it. While in Abrahamic religions, they also mention that similar thing was done. So if different cultures have the same ideology, that means it is true that our body is made from mud. That is why in Ayurveda we say that the earth is what makes our body. The Pancha Mahabhuta is the 5 elements. One of them is earth, is what makes us humans. And children, when they are born, they love to eat that mud. Because it is not afraid of it. It is one with it. But our mind, modern science, where we talk about infection, bacteria, this and that inside the mud, that is what creates that divide between us and the nature. And that is when we touch the mud, we start getting sick. Unless we know that there is something called bacteria, viruses, everything in that mud, in that dirt, we are not getting sick. You can play with it. In Goa, we have something called Chikalkalo. In that, people are just lying in the mud, playing, running, everything. The mud just enters their mouth, ear, everywhere. Nobody gets sick. Why? But yet in our clean houses, something falls on the floor, we are afraid that millions of microbes are going to climb on that, and that is going to enter our mouth, and we are going to be in hospital for a month. Why is it so? So is it here? Is this fake reality that we have created inside us because the knowledge, the half knowledge of modern science and technology and this discoveries and statistical reports have told us or taught or trained our brain to think that this is it, that we cannot stuff that mud in our mouth or we will get sick. So the sickness is it really created by the mud or the dirt, or is it created by our mind? Think about it. So as he mentions about this story, most of us know about this, the birth of Gajanana or Ganesha, is that then Shiva tells them to bring head of an animal that is in the north, the first animal that you see where the mother is not looking at the child, and they cut the head of the elephant and then they attach it to the boy who is decapitated. Then he is reborn as Ganesha, the elephant-headed one. So it is very interesting. Ganesha is a god of wisdom. And we know in nature the most smartest animals who knows the nature the best is actually an elephant. Indian scholars, they have known this fact for many years, and that is why Gajanana is worshipped. Actually, you are worshipping the elephants in nature. As I mentioned earlier, that duality in our mind, spirituality or householder. So these two if you want to overcome, then you have to pray to Gajanana, because he's the fruit of the union of the two. Parvati, one who wants to Shiva to be a household, and Shiva who wants to be spiritually alone or always in the yogic trance. And their union in the form of elephant god or Gajanana leads to that breaking of this barrier and becoming one. And that is why, if you want to achieve a spiritual enlightenment and getting cut off by this duality, then you have to pray to Gajanana. He mentions something about Vishnu being, how it is different from Shiva. Shiva is someone who's smears ash and everything. He's beyond this circle of life. He's beyond this life. He's after death. And Vishnu is someone who willingly takes part in the cycle of rebirth through different avatars. And he dresses in a very elegant way. He does things like how normal human beings will do. So it's a way of him conveying to the humans how they should be without getting attached to the world, without getting influenced by the Maya. He says that, he fights but does not hate. He loves but does not control. He does his karma without expecting a result from it, and he does his karma without having an emotional attachment towards it. So whatever he does is just being in the moment. When he is in the moment, Lakshmi is chasing him. He is not controlling him, he is not possessing him. Lakshmi is not someone he owns. Lakshmi is where he exists, she exists. Means when you are praying to Hari or Vishnu, Lakshmi naturally comes to you. You just have to do your karma with your dharma, and Lakshmi will follow you everywhere. It is not just wealth, my friend. It is not just money. Lakshmi is dhana dhanya. That dhana is wealth. Dhanya means food, and also it also means, as I mentioned, health, because health is the true wealth. So you might not have like a huge amount of money, but you might have all the happiness that you need when you're praying to Vishnu and living your life in the moment. As a spiritual seeker, as a householder, you can choose to be one of them. And their way of life is very different, but you can choose to be one of them because they are both the same, only they are giving a different perspective. Either you can enjoy life and not get attached to it, or you get not attached to it at all and not enjoy your life at all. So you can choose. There is no hard fast rule. This is very interesting. In Ananta Asana, he mentions something about how Vishnu, or we call him like the Vishnu that sleeps, Ananta Shesha, or the snake, the five-hooded snake that he sleeps on the ocean. So what it mentions is, in the scriptures sometimes said that when the Vishnu, he sleeps or he closes his eyes, the world ceases to exist. And when he opens his eyes, the world comes to life. So that formation of the universe and destruction of universe is carried on like this. What it actually means is very interestingly mentioned here, is that when we sleep, the Maya, the world that we see around, it ceases to exist. When you're sleeping, you don't know what is there. You are in a different world. So the world that you see is actually the world within inside. So that is why it is said, some of the spiritual seekers, some of the yogis, they have this particular way of meditating where they choose to enter into a state of another realm through achieving that minor split between the two worlds, the state of being awake and the state of sleeping. So in between there is a state where you can achieve beyond this physical world. I think we had covered this part before where Mr. Sri M also mentioned about this state of Turiya. So you can go through it and search for that relevance thing because it's very deep. I have not tried it anytime, but might have accidentally tapped on it once. But it's very interesting. Do check it out. So as we move forward to the Garudasana, he mentions something about, again, Vishnu. So Vishnu being the preserver of this world, or the sustainer of this world, he lies on a Shesha, that is a serpent, and he rides Garuda, which is the eagle. The eagle and the serpent are kind of enemies. They are very hardcore enemies in nature. and they tend to always want to eat each other or destroy each other. So being that they are present with the same god, that is Vishnu, so he maintains that equilibrium with them and they are not attacking each other. Interestingly, what is mentioned in this book is that he has both these animals. It portrays an ideology where Vishnu, being the preserver of this world, he has to exist and learn with the human, observe the humans, at the same time observe the whole universe. So the Garuda, it flies high. So as it flies high, he has that bird eye view of overall things, how it is happening. We call it Trikaldarshi, like seeing things from all the angles. Snake or the serpent has the ground view, that is, it is lying on the ground and it sees like how we move, how humans move. So it gives him the perspective of an individual human at a ground level and an overall view. So he can make sure that everything works really well. So we have to learn from this kind of mythological stories and understand that these are not just mythological stories. The stories are for giving us some knowledge or wisdom to work in our life. They're kind of teachings, a philosophical teaching that we can use in our practical life so that we can be like them and achieve a state of enlightenment. So as we move forward to Chakrasana, there is something very interesting that I came across, which he mentions, is that chakra. We have the Kundalini chakra, one after the other, total 7 of them, and each of these Kundalini chakra has specific petals, and these petals have specific color, which I didn't know before. So each chakra has different color. So when you activate a particular chakra, apparently you see a particular light inside you, or you visualize a particular light to see a particular chakra or activate a particular chakra. There are 7 chakras, and the 7 chakras have 7 different colors of Vidya, that is the rainbow. And we know that rainbow, when the 7 colors are together, they are not split, they form a white light. And it kind of struck me because it reminded me of a time when I was meditating in China, and I went into a deep trance of kind of emptiness, and I saw a white light rising right from the part of my flat bed of my anus, rising all the way up like in a spiral, and it hit my chin and went up, passed through it. And when it hit my chin, I had a beautiful smile of happiness and content without having a reason about it. Like, you smile or you are happy because you have a reason, you have got something or lost something or somehow the other. But I had that without any reason, and the smile was like everlasting. It's like I didn't know how to stop it. So at that time, I didn't know why it was a white light. Most of the people have talked about blue light, some of them talked about yellow light, and I didn't know why it was. But when I read this, it kind of made sense. If all the 7 chakras are for some reason, I have no idea, I've never trained in Kundalini, Kriya Yoga or any of those things, but I was in a kind of a very deep trance. I didn't know the time span that I spent in that state. But in that, probably for that one time, I had that all the chakras open at the same time. And basically, I feel like it's like a white light that I saw. But I tried to achieve the state a lot of time, but I have failed almost all the time. So I never felt that again. This is the beauty of meditation. If you cannot recreate it, it is the best thing, because then you don't chase behind it. You don't get mentally disturbed by it, and you let it go. It's an experience. So every time you have a different experience, you let it go. Because meditation is not about achieving certain siddhi or something. It is just about being. So at that moment, that was the state of being. So any of you actually see this kind of light while in a state, don't try to forcefully do it. Don't try to imagine, visualize it. If it naturally happens, then it's probably your chakras are getting empty and they're opening up. If you want to be a hermit, then you can meditate with your eyes closed and focus on the third eye looking inside. But if you want to be an householder and also meditate, it is where you have to look at the world outside and inside at the same time. So this is more of a practical thing for people like us who are living in this society, and that we cannot ignore our duties, our civic duties. We cannot ignore who we are in this lifetime with this physical body, with this identity, and we absolutely cannot ignore people who are dependent on us, dependent on our karma. So if you want to live a life like Vishnu or Shiva and try to achieve the spiritual awakening inside, cultivation inside, you can always do it living in the society, being a householder. And to do this, you have to keep all the three eyes open. What I mean by three eyes open is that you have to look within yourself all the time, who you are truly. The world that you see outside is a reflection of just your thoughts, your desires. What you truly are is that infinite Atma that will keep on existing. And you have to always strive to the future. You have to strive to do a development of not just your physical body, your mental, emotional, and spiritual body as well. And you have to do it while you bring other people and evolve others as well. If you are just going to chase after money and just desires and hunger and being afraid of death, then you will be limited by what you can achieve. We know from science that most of us at the maximum use like 5 to 10% of our brain. If you could achieve the 100% usage of your brain, basically you are turning into a godly figure. I won't say God, because then that ego will just rise. So the primary purpose of this existence in this Kali Yuga is the ego. If you can overcome the ego, if you can overcome the fear, if you can overcome all kinds of desires, if you can overcome hatred, you can overcome jealousy, you can overcome all those things, like we say the Shatrabhu. So if you can do that, then you will be someone with very powerful mind, and you will be for sure peaceful, because peace and tranquility is something that everyone longs for. That is why we are running every day, that someday after retirement we will be peaceful. Some point of time, don't think about peace. Think about karma. Think about being in the moment. Think about dharma. Think about serving everyone around you, and you will have a very happy and peaceful life. So do tell me what you felt after listening to this book review. It's a very long video, I'm sorry for that, but I had to go through a lot of this parts, because they are kind of very interesting, and since it is like one chapter on different asanas, it's kind of very long. But still, I had my own personal inputs. It can vary from your personal opinions. So and also it can be different for the writer himself. So do tell me what you felt after listening to this video, and do comment about if you have any specific book that you want me to read and give a review about, or if you want to understand something that probably I know and you want to learn about. Also, my next video most probably will be on a novel, so I will try to make the video as early as possible. But yeah, do stay tuned, do subscribe to my channel, like it, share it, and do comment. Please let me know your opinions, because it gives me more idea about how I should make my next video. So thank you so much, and God bless you. Jai Hind.